Dustin Poirier in the city of New Orleans is being disrespected, bro. UFC 318. It is not even, I'm not going to say it's a terrible card, man. You see some of the fights. Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. Going to be a banger, okay? BMF title on the line. But then you look at what they have as the co-main event right now. Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. Yeah, man, right on. Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. Woo! Guys, Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. I know they have beef. I understand that, man. You know, you're just a casual. You don't want to see crafty Marvin Vettori versus crafty Brendan Allen. No. I'm fine with that fight being on the main card, but as the co-main event, absolutely not. But that's what I'm here for, guys. UFC 318 is lacking a co-main event. So I'm going to insert a good co-main event that's going to turn this into a solid card. Also, if you haven't heard already, Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov is out of UFC 317 and has been rescheduled to 318, okay? So adding a little bit of firepower to 318, but still, Vettori versus Allen is not a fitting co-main event. But I am here to do the UFC a favor. We need a new co-main event for UFC 318, guys. We have a month to do so. So starting off with the best option, since it's Dustin Poirier's retirement fight, we got Conor McGregor making his return against Nate Diaz. Guys, I'm kidding. We're going to be realistic because we have a month to work, okay? We have to find two fighters that are willing to step in on short notice and fight in New Orleans, Louisiana. But let's go ahead and get into it with the first option, okay? Jean Silva versus Diego Lopez. This fight has violence written all over it. Jean Silva's the perfect type of fighter to insert in a co-main event slot. Not because he's this big star, but people are starting to come around. Some people are starting to understand and find out who Jean Silva is because he just choked out Bryce Mitchell. A lot of fans know Bryce Mitchell, man, even some casuals out there. A lot of people also know Diego Lopez. Again, not a big star, but he just fought for the title. He just fought Volkanovski. Guys, this is a banger fight, okay? The UFC has apparently offered this fight, and Diego Lopez has accepted. I don't know if Jean Silva declined or if we're actually getting this fight. I don't know. But this fight has been offered. It is not out of reach. We've seen Jean Silva fight on short notice before. We've also seen Diego Lopez fight on short notice before. This fight's not out of reach, bro. This would 100% get the New Orleans crowd pumped, bro. Jean Silva versus Diego Lopez. If this was the co-main event of 318, you cannot tell me you would not be excited. This would elevate the card from a 4 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10, okay? It still wouldn't be this, UFC 300 card, even a UFC 314, but it would be decent. Now, in my personal opinion, I'm a Diego Lopez fan. I wouldn't want to see this fight for him because I think Jean Silva would win this fight. I think it could be competitive, though. But the UFC's fumbling the bag. We want to see Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez for UFC Noche. That makes all the sense in the world, okay? More of a winnable fight for Diego as well. If the UFC finally wants to go that route, since Movsar Evloev's fighting Pico, and apparently Dana White announced that Evloev would fight for the title next if he wins that fight. Maybe they hold off on Volkanovski. Maybe we're not getting Volk versus Yair once and for all, or you get what I'm saying. But maybe we're not actually getting that fight. Nobody wants to see that fight. If they're not doing that fight and Volkanovski's going to sit around and wait, let's do this, okay? Listen. If Diego Lopez versus Yair is going to get booked, let's still schedule Jean Silva a fight, okay? Jean Silva, who's on a tear, he's an upcoming prospect. I don't even want to say prospect anymore. He's a legit contender. He just took out Bryce Mitchell, dominated that fight. Let's put a guy like Jean Silva as a co-main on 318, okay? There's going to be a lot of eyes on a Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier, okay? I don't know why I keep saying okay, but Jean Silva versus Brian, not the dog from Family Guy, Ortega. It's a fun fight. I think it's one-sided. I'm not going to lie. I think Jean Silva dominates this fight. I think Ortega becomes a punching bag. But it's enough firepower to put in a co-main event slot, guys. At least over Vettori versus Allen. It's way better. It's miles better than that. I think Vettori versus Allen is actually going to be a good fight. But why? It just can't be a co-main event, bro. It can't. It can't. Brian Ortega, he's been in some wars. He has fought for the title in the past. It's kind of an old, crafty vet. Maybe not so crafty anymore for Ortega. But young gun versus old vet. I think it's enough firepower to put as a co-main event. Again, not these massive stars, but you don't need a massive star. We just need one solid fight to put in the co-main event slot to at least make it better, to at least make it decent, okay? Let's keep it going on with the third option. This one's a banger. And maybe I'm biased since I might be popping out at UFC 318 watching it live. Y'all know how I feel about Yuri Prohaska. I love me some Yuri. Yuri versus Carlos Ulberg would be a number one contenders fight now. The problem would be Yuri Prohaska is taking some exams. So he's turned down a title fight at 317 because he has to take exams. Will he be able to make it for 318? I don't know. Yuri Prohaska versus Carlos Ulberg. Carlos Ulberg's on a tear as well. This will be a number one contenders fight, like I'm saying. But man, Yuri Prohaska is, again, a big enough star to run a co-main event slot. You might even see him as a co-main event on a Madison Square Garden card. This might be a stretch. I think Yuri Prohaska, if he's done with his exams, you could get him on board to fight a short notice fight. I don't know if I can feel the same about Carlos Ulberg. I don't know if I could say that. Carlos Ulberg, this fight makes all the sense in the world, to be honest. Yuri has said in the past that he would be willing to fight the winner of Ulberg and Blachowicz. Ulberg won that fight, so let's make this fight, okay? I know there's only 1 month to prepare. I don't know if Ulberg wants more than 1 month to prepare for Yuri. Probably so. But like I'm saying, guys, if you can't get this fight, we have a backup option that is not better. Definitely not better, but it's decent, okay? Dominic Reyes versus Rakic. How can you not make this fight, man? Dominic Reyes, the title run is real. This man is back. He's not just back. He's better, okay? Alexander Rakic is riding a 3-fight losing streak. This man needs to get back in the win column. And you know, the American fans, they love some Dominic Reyes, man. The guy that robbed John Jones, or John Jones robbed. Dominic Reyes, again, not a big star, but you cannot tell me the city of New Orleans would not rally behind Dominic Reyes in a fight with Alexander Rakic. Yes, absolutely they would. Dominic Reyes, he could win this fight. Alexander Rakic is a tricky cook. He's a tough customer, okay? He's a tough cookie, but Dominic Reyes versus Alexander Rakic, it's a good fight. Again, it doesn't sound co-main material right now at this point in their careers, but it's better than Vettori versus Allen. I don't even know if it's a better fight, but dude, I would rather see this in a co-main event slot than the other one. You get what I'm saying, guys? I don't even mean to hate on Vettori and Allen. I know they have beef. They have history. It's not a co-main event, bro. Let's let the title run continue. Dominic Reyes, if he chins Alexander Rakic, Dominic Reyes is going to be fighting for the title next year, bro. Honestly, maybe you do Dominic Reyes versus the winner of Roundtree and Hill this weekend. That's a possibility as well. Or maybe you do Dominic Reyes versus Alexander Rakic. He has stated that he would be open to fighting Rakic. It makes all the sense in the world. Again, man, you don't need an Arman Sarukian versus Paddy Pimblett to co-main 318, bro. You don't need that. Obviously, it would be great, but we just need a solid co-main event to make this fight card decent. Okay, so enough with the UFC 318 rant, but we're moving right on to UFC 319, okay? They just announced some fights. We got Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Banger main event. One of the most anticipated fights of the year. Perfect. And then we got a drop off. Tim Elliott versus Kaya Sakura. Decent fight. I'm glad Kaya Sakura is finally returning. I feel like this bro vanished. Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. We get excited for MVP fights, but don't really love the Cannonier matchup, but it is what it is. I'm fine with it. And then we have Edson Barboza versus Drakkar Klose. And it says main card next to it. This is a good fight. Don't get me wrong. This will be fun. It'll be entertaining. But let's bump that off the main card, bro. Let's put that as the featured prelim, okay? And then we've got Kareem Silva versus J.J. Aldrich. Let's go ahead and get into it, guys, okay? I'm about to build UFC 319. You know why I have you here? Let's go ahead and build UFC 319 as well, starting off with the main card opener. We don't want Kareem Silva. We don't want her anywhere near the main card because we got Kevin Holland versus Carlos Prates. This is a TikTok fan's dream fight. You know the edits are going to go crazy. All the casual fans, man. I don't even want to say casual fans. I would be excited for this fight, guys. I'm just having fun. But Kevin Holland, a casual's favorite fighter. Carlos Prates, also a casual's favorite fighter, man. You get what I'm saying? But, dude, this is actually a banger fight. Kevin Holland's looking like he's locked in at 170. Carlos Prates needs to bounce back after losing to Ian Gary in not necessarily dominant fashion, but pretty convincingly, okay? Except for the last minute of the fight or so. But Kevin Holland versus Carlos Prates is a perfect main card opener. It is. Kevin Holland, a long, crafty, slick submission artist. long, lengthy striker. Carlos Prates, same thing, at least on the feet. He's a long striker with a lot of power. And Kevin Holland has a granite chin. So how does this fight play out? I don't know. It's an intriguing matchup, bro. It really is. Kevin Holland versus Carlos Prates. This is the type of fight you want on a pay-per-view to kick off the main card. As soon as you pay $80, guys, because we all pay $80 for every single pay-per-view, right, guys? This is the type of fight you want to see as soon as you drop that bag and spend $80, okay? Let's keep it rolling. On to the next fight, only because this fight has already been announced. We got Tim Elliott versus Kaya Sakura. If I was matchmaking, I would have maybe put Kaya Sakura against a striker. More of a fun fight, but Tim Elliott, that's fine. It's a winnable fight for Kaya Sakura. If he loses this fight, buddy, you're cooked. You're cooked, okay? I don't want to see you anywhere near a title ever again. Kaya Sakura, I believe he's ranked. If he beats Tim Elliott, you can put him in there with a guy like Manel Kape. Manel Kape's going to be coming off a surgery, I believe, because, he pulled out of UFC 317. What do you know? Paulo Costa and Manel Kape pulling out, man. Who could have guessed it? But again, it's not a bad fight. It's a decent fight, but we're going to put it right after the main card opener. Let's keep it going. On to the feature fight. This one's already been announced. Michael Venom Page versus Jared Cannonier. Everybody's getting excited for an MVP fight, okay? They are. They just are, even though they're not always as entertaining as you might anticipate beforehand. The Shara fight wasn't super entertaining. The Ian Gary fight definitely wasn't entertaining. But MVP, he's going to be flashy. He's going to be keeping his range, landing his big bombs. I think he can win this fight. I don't love this matchup because I wanted to see and I anticipated Michael Venom Page was going to be staying at 170. I guess not. He's going back up to middleweight fighting crafty vet Jared Cannonier, who's like 56 years old. Now, Jared Cannonier, he's still good. I believe he's still elite at the top of the division, but MVP is just he's such a tricky fighter on the feet. I could see MVP actually knocking out Jared Cannonier in this fight. But it's a decent fight. But here's where we get going, guys. Into the co-main event, Sean Brady versus Ian Gary. Number one contenders fight in the welterweight division, sort of, I guess. If Ian Gary beats Sean Brady, you know what? Yeah, I could see them giving him a title shot, even though he just lost to Shavkat 2 fights ago. But Shavkat's injured. Shavkat is injured, so Sean Brady just dominated Leon Edwards. This fight is not confirmed, but Sean Brady has accepted it verbally, and so is Ian Gary. Both of these guys want to fight each other, and I think the UFC is going to book it. I really do. So UFC 319, Hamzat versus DDP, co-main, Sean Brady versus Ian Gary. You cannot tell me you're not getting excited for this. You can't tell me that. You cannot tell me that. This is a fight that I think Sean Brady wins. But if Ian Gary goes out there and shocks the world and beats a Sean Brady, I'm okay with him fighting for the title. It seems like Islam Makhachev is going to fight JDM. It's basically confirmed, but that's a good fight, by the way. So maybe you do establish this as a number one contenders fight. Whoever wins this fight fights the winner of Islam and JDM. If Islam beats JDM and Ian Gary beats Sean Brady, guys, we're getting Khabib versus Conor 2.0. Definitely not on that level, but we would be getting Dagestan, Russia versus Ireland again. It could be a storyline there at least. But Sean Brady versus Ian Gary is a sick fight. And of course, the main event being Dricus du Plessis defending versus Khamzat Chimaev. Banger main event to cap off a banger card. By the way, this isn't even this again, not a 10 out of 10 pay-per-view, but you got a banger fight to start off the main card. Decent fight. Banger co-main event. It doesn't get much better than this for a co-main event slot. And then for the main event, it also does not get much better than this. And guys, tell me this press conference would not be generational. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat, that in itself is going to be insane. Dricus du Plessis going to get under Khamzat's skin. But we've got Ian Gary on there as well. Sean Brady, maybe not going to talk too much trash. Him and Ian Gary are going to go back and forth a little bit. But we've got Ian Gary on the same card as Dricus. Dricus is going to throw some insults at Ian Gary. We got MVP as well. MVP and Ian Gary don't really like each other. I know they've already fought, but there was some conspiracies, if you want to say that, of MVP trying to, I guess you could say, cheat, trying to get some inside sources in Ian Gary's camp. So that would be funny. Nothing from them, but Kevin Holland, he's going to be taking shots at Ian Gary as well. And tell me you cannot picture Dricus du Plessis versus Kevin Holland beefing at the press conference, bro. I don't know what it would even be about, but Dricus could definitely say something smart to Kevin Holland. I could see Kevin Holland saying something to Dricus. But guys, we don't need these 10 out of 10 pay-per-views every single time. I love a UFC 300 event every once in a while. Please bring another one of those back. But You don't need a 10 out of 10 pay-per-view every time, but we also don't want these 5 out of 10 pay-per-views. This is a decent pay-per-view. Kevin Holland versus Carlos Prates. Y'all get what I'm saying, guys. This is a decent pay-per-view. This is all it takes, Dana White. It's not that difficult. Every single pay-per-view should be at least at this level. But that's enough for me, guys. That's enough ranting for today. UFC 318. Hopefully they add at least one more fight. Hopefully they add a co-main event because I don't want to see Vettori versus Allen as the co-main event. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. Let me know some potential co-main event spots for UFC 318. And be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're new. Turn the post notifications on. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate y'all once again, and we out.